Victor 5.1 and above supports the use of SIP devices, providing flexible bi-directional audio functionality that expands the power, versatility and range of your Victor solution. In version 5.1 and above, Victor workstations can send and receive calls to or from any SIP-enabled devices, such as Illustra Pro cameras, soft SIP clients, SIP phones, or IP intercoms connected to the Victor application server. One excellent aspect of the feature is that the Victor application server acts as a SIP server, so aside from adding the SIP devices themselves, no other physical network configuration is required. There are 4 steps to configuring a SIP device in Victor. First of all, make the application server a SIP server by going to Configuration Hub, Settings, SIP Configuration, and enter the VAS IP address into the Free Switch Server IP address field. Note that the other fields do not require editing. Through the graphical user interface of the SIP device, add the IP address of the relevant Victor application server as the SIP server, which may be denoted as the host. It is also important to give the SIP device an ID. This will later be used to associate the device with a camera, so this should be noted. Next, give each applicable workstation a SIP ID. Right-click the station and select Edit from the resultant context menu. Then go to SIP Settings and give each workstation a unique SIP ID number. Note that if a particular ID has already been assigned, the box will clear and display a red border. Note that this SIP ID is an arbitrary value and doesn't need to match up with any other numbers specified during the configuration. Finally, each SIP device which is not a SIP-enabled camera needs to be associated with a camera in the Victor device list. To associate the device with a camera, right-click on the camera in the device list and open SIP Settings in the Edit page. In the SIP ID field, add the SIP ID of the SIP device, assigned in the interface of the SIP device, in this case 123456. To call out from Victor, right-click a camera associated with a SIP device, which will have a blue telephone icon just to the right of the camera icon, and push Call. As we can see here, the SIP phone, which happens to be shown in the surveillance pane for this demonstration, lights up and rings. A two-way conversation can then be held between the Victor user and the SIP device user. For a SIP-enabled camera, calling the camera will instantly affect communication to the device, so the Victor user will be able to initiate two-way communication with anyone in vicinity of the camera. The same window as that which appears when calling a SIP phone, with the option to hang up, appears. Another useful feature in Victor is the ability to call all SIP devices connected to a particular recorder simultaneously. Any NVRs with cameras with associated SIP devices also have a blue telephone icon. Right-click on such an NVR and from the resultant context menu, click Call to call all the SIP devices on that NVR. To call back to Victor from a compatible SIP device, the number is 1000. As can be seen here, when a call comes in, the microphone icon on the Victor Quick Action bar flashes yellow. A ringtone also sounds to alert the user to the call. To see the details of the call, click on the flashing microphone icon. A window then appears showing the associated camera from which the call is coming from and giving the option to answer. Upon answering, the window changes to give the option to disconnect the call. SIP Recap. The Victor application server functions as the free switch server. The SIP ID given to a camera must match the device ID of the SIP device associated with that camera. Workstations must be assigned a SIP ID. Any SIP-enabled device can be added, including Illustra Pro MiniDome and soft SIP clients. That's the communications enhancing SIP support in Victor 5.1 and above. Thank you for watching.